His reviews will get you further than the film will ever go. If you give him just a moment of your time, he'll let you know which movies rock, which movies stink, which movies shouldn't have been released. Say hello to Confused Matthew.
Really, the only thing I didn't like about this film is that I just don't understand what it is they're trying to make fun of here. Come on, you think I'm serious? Galaxy Quest is basically an all-out Star Trek roast. Think of it like this. Star Wars has Spaceballs, and Star Trek has this. And between the two, I actually like this one a lot more. Not only was Spaceballs not funny at all, with the exception of Rick Moranis' parts, but it felt to me like Mel Brooks was making the film out of cynicism. I could be totally wrong about this, and if I am, consider this my retraction. But it seemed to me like Brooks thought the whole Star Wars thing was just stupid, and he made the movie just to demonstrate how stupid he thought it was. But with Galaxy Quest, I feel like the film was being made out of nothing but love. Love for the campy sets, the countless number of catchphrases and cliches, and all that glorious techno-babbly goodness. The story centers around a group of actors who once worked together on a now-cancelled science fiction show, but it turns out years later the show has become a cult classic, so they all make regular appearances at conventions. Almost all these characters are sick and tired of playing these roles, except for the lead actor, who seems to have profited the most from the gig. He eventually gets approached by what he thinks is a group of fans taking him to another gig, but later realizes that these are real aliens who want him to help their people. These guys, the Thermians, are being hassled by this guy Saris. It turns out the Thermians picked up the show Galaxy Quest, only they thought it was a historical document and that everything was real. They even patterned their whole society and culture off of what they saw in the show, which pretty much makes them an entire race of hardcore fans. The actors get taken to a starport where the ship from their TV show has now been built and is fully operational. Unfortunately, as they are actors and not space commanders, they have no idea what to do with it. And if you think that's a recipe for hilarity, it is. One advantage this film has over Spaceballs is that that film only had one thing to make fun of. This has two. The stuff that goes on in front of the camera and the stuff that goes on behind it. Throughout the film, the principal cast members are constantly arguing over any number of things. Who's always getting the best lines, who's making private gigs and thereby screwing everyone else, etc. Now, if you know anything about the cast of the real Star Trek, you'll know that similar things did take place. The film also has a lot of fun with some of the questionable production decisions, like the idea of putting a kid on the show without one single person realizing that he's not going to be a kid forever and that eventually the novelty will wear off. Or my favorite part, the absolutely pointless Hall of Death that serves no purpose at all. In my Star Wars Episode 1 review, I commented on the Hall of Shields turning on and off and asked, why is this even here? Well, Sigourney Weaver's character asks literally the same question when she sees this thing. You may have thought that I had gotten the line from this movie, but no, I honestly didn't. So it's nice to know that I'm not the only one who recognizes how remarkably stupid this is. But what I like about Galaxy Quest on its own is the imagination that went into some of the races and worlds. The Thermians are kind of like a race of children. They know nothing about deception and lies, and basically take everyone at their word on everything. But what I like most about them is how alien they are. In their natural form, they're basically squid people, but in their human form, they come across even weirder than that. Think of a cross between the Coneheads and Rom from Deep Space Nine. A lot of what they say and do is funny, but as the movie went into greater depth about their culture and motivations, I actually kind of started to care about these guys. Then we have the main villain, Saris, who is capturing and torturing all the Thermians to try and steal the secrets of Omega-13. Funnily enough, this guy is actually more effective a villain than some of the real villains who have been in Star Trek. He's kind of the exact opposite of the Thermians. All he knows is lies and violence. You can only take a movie like this so seriously, but to a certain extent, I really became invested in seeing the Thermians triumph over this jerk. I give a lot of credit to the creativity in making this film. As a matter of fact, this movie captures the spirit of Star Trek better in some ways than some of the later Star Trek shows did. I always felt like the worlds in The Next Generation were about as far away from strange and new as you could possibly get. They were really just trite, familiar worlds mostly. This film has some of the strangest crap I've ever seen, and I appreciate its return to the downright bizarre. But the real joy in this film is watching what real people would do in a fictional setting like Star Trek, especially since these people know they're in a Star Trek-esque show, and they all know what usually happens in situations like these. One of the characters is simply named Guy, and he is absolutely convinced that he is the expendable crewman that will get killed 5 minutes in. He tries to fight it off, he tries to run from it, but he eventually comes to accept that he's just a walking red shirt. One of the funniest moments in the film is when he asks everyone what his last name is, and no one can seem to remember it. He's just not important enough to have one. There are a lot of nods to what would really happen in a Star Trek setting. For example, when piloting the ship out of spaceport, they accidentally grazed the side and put a scratch mark on it. Man, I have always wanted to see that happen. But one of the best parts is seeing what would really happen if you tried to use a transporter device, and I'll just leave it at that. There's a lot of adventure, a lot of fights, and a lot of coming together as friends in this film. But in the end, the real hero isn't the commander, or the pilot, or the doctor with fins on his head, it's the fans. And I'm talking about the detail-oriented, hardcore fans. The ones who know the middle name and social security number of every major and minor character in the show. I have known a lot of fans like this, of many science fiction franchises, but have never been one myself. So it's hilarious to know that there really are people out there who would have a full, detailed schematic of an entire fictional ship just lying around on their desktop. Just for the record, I have never been to a Star Trek convention and am very resistant to the idea of going, but I'll bet any regular attendee could easily have saved the world in a situation like this. Galaxy Quest is very funny and very entertaining, but there are even some dramatic moments that work better than you'd expect for a film like this. This movie really has something for everyone. If you're a Trek fan, or know anything about the behind-the-scenes goings-on, you'll pick up on a lot of these jokes instantly, and some of them will really have you rolling. But even if you've never seen Star Trek and know nothing about it, the film is self-contained enough for you to enjoy it. Now, the whole thing revolves around one premise: actors from a campy show interacting with the show in reality, so there's a risk that that concept may wear itself out pretty quick. But the people writing this film know when to leave well enough alone. It goes on for just long enough to where we get it without feeling that it's overstayed its welcome, and that is the mark of any good comedy. This is not the best or even the funniest movie ever made, but it's pretty good. If you've got a weekend where there's nothing to do and this is on, that will be the perfect time to watch this. It's one of those films that I will probably watch only about twice a year, or maybe every other year, but there's nothing wrong with that. For everyone else, I would recommend seeing it at least once. Its enjoyability and its humor is something that even the most hardcore Star Trek fan cannot deny.